Well, hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world watching this particular podcast. I just want to welcome you to District 71's popular podcast series. This is episode number 20, believe it or not, of Toastmasters Unplugged. Hi again, my name's Nigel Smith, and I'll be your host this evening. I'm currently a member of Birmingham Bullring Speakers in Area 39. And tonight's show is going to be something quite thought-provoking. It's how AI can shape and share the art of communication. And don't worry, it's not all that tech heavy, because we do have a heavy dose of HI in there as well. That's human intelligence, and that's going to be in the form of our special guest speaker here this evening. And here to join us is someone who is not just a conference organizer, he's an international conference speaker. He's big on benefits management and sustainability, a veritable Mentimeter ninja, leading District 71's Centre of Technical Excellence. He's an absolute demon on AI and project analytics. He was also, along with myself, one of the founding fathers of PMI UK Changemakers here in District 71. He's an all-round great guy. I've worked and known him for many years. He's a seasoned Toastmaster, and he's currently a member of Worthing Speakers over in District 91. It's the magical mentor maestro himself. It's Merv Wyeth. Hi, Merv. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well, Nigel. You've gone over the top with the introduction, but I appreciate it. So
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. You had a good day today?
I have, yes. Yeah, I've been plugging away on some of my AI stuff, but got on my spin bike a little bit earlier. And yeah, I'd count it as a good day.
Excellent. Well, let's get the pedal to the metal right from the start then. So AI, Toastmasters, one talks all about technology, one's about the more human element. Where did you get this meld of all these things first coming together, Merv?
Well, yeah, as I was preparing this, I was doing a fair bit of reflection. And one of the things that I really owe my current passion to is a TED talk by a guy called David J.P. Phillips, who gave his talk back in April of 2014, so almost 11 years ago. And it's had millions of hits, and it's called How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint. And I know I'm guilty of it. I know a lot of others that are guilty of it. And it set me on a bit of a trail. So something like, I guess I saw it probably a year in, but let's say 10 years ago. And, you know, how I could really follow through on what I thought was a fantastic message.
And how did that translate then into the AI theme of where we're going this evening? Because I know that if we'd have had this conversation maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, we'd have no content or very little content for this evening. But how did the PowerPoint move into something that was AI related?
Yeah, I guess I've always been looking for making presentations that little bit more, make them work, make them effective, and working a lot of audience interaction, which I know that you also are into. So I very much believe in, you know, the collective wisdom is there in the audience, and that's the job of the presenter to pull that out. And I remember initially when I looked at a tool that we could use, it was a tool called Send Steps. And I went across to Copenhagen to a conference. It was a conference about conferences, and the kids say, well, why have you gone there, Merv, for goodness sake? But I came back with this tool that allowed you to send in information polls via your phone, but they were text messages. And, you know, it was kind of, you never knew whether or not you'd get an audience response, because it relied on things like the Wi-Fi. And so there was, and that was, you know, in very early days. So from those early days, and something was a little bit edgy, I've gradually moved forward. And so far as the AI is concerned, really from about 2020, when I got involved with Project Data Analytics and the Data Analytics Task Force, and really picked up on their vision. But like everyone else, it was ChatGPT that really kind of accelerated my involvement in this.
Yeah, and is it true to say that I think it was like big data, wasn't it? 10 years or even more ago than that, when lots and lots of data. We've now got all this massive computing power, people putting these large language models together. Did that sort of culminate rather at the sort of time you're speaking and became more commercially available to the sort of the man on the street sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just understanding, the art of the possible. I remember I was in a conference in Greece, and I was sat there in the audience, and the guy speaking was talking of a model, and I think there were 8 steps in the model, so you can imagine what it might have looked like going across. And then there was a heading for each of those steps, and below there was a paragraph of text. And I realized quite simply, by taking a picture of that and popping it into ChatGPT, I got to the end. I found out about the model before the speaker had even got to step number 4. So it made me realize that actually, we've got to up our game as speakers, because we've got to give someone some additional value that they can't just get by pointing their phone at our presentation.
I thought the AI might come back and say, "Oh, it's all Greek to me."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, so moving on from the, I guess, or incorporating with the PowerPoint theme, what sort of and I think you joined Worthing Speakers in the last year or so as well, and you got engaged, involved in some of the club roles and did the evaluations and things. What sort of, if you like, lit the torch paper for you to say, I want to try and link this technology in with what we're doing here in Toastmasters?
Yeah, as you say, I joined Worthing Speakers, but you'll know I really kind of was blooded in terms of Toastmasters with your change makers, and I know a lot to you and the rest of the team for that. But when I landed in person at Worthing Speakers in about August of last year, I suddenly realized there was a whole lot more to doing something like an evaluation. And I have to say that I feel it's not my strong suit. I'm not a great listener, and that comes through. But I realized that actually some of the tools that I was using in work, say for recording meetings, could do a very effective evaluation. So if you just recorded it, and I started out with permission of the speaker, simply using a platform called Otter AI that I was using for meetings to record the audio, and then even as the presentation was finishing, I could ask questions of the audio. So it was it felt like a bit of a cheat, but it actually sparked a kind of, well, how can we take this further forward? So that was only last August, but it develops almost weekly in terms of what we now do.
When you did those audio only ones with Otter, clearly with the speakers who get permission for it, what was their initial feedback to the sort of insights and awareness that you managed to identify?
I think there was definitely the wow factor was there. There was a little bit of a challenge from some people as to whether it being so clinical took away from some of the overall emotion and edginess of it. And I think that's right. But I do think that the speaker themselves, they may get a good evaluation they can go and do something with, but if they're like me, they leave the room, they've pretty much forgotten it. But if you've got a product that you can listen to and spend some time on, you've generally got it's the 2020 hindsight that you've got, and you can really work on.
I guess as well, it was like necessity is a mother of all invention. You wanted to improve your evaluation skills and in a way sort of developed a tool from what was already on the shelf to help you do that.
Yes.
And so you got to the Otter AI audio piece. What was the next natural step from there?
It moved to sort of the Google platform. So Google products, really, I've used Gemini and creating my own gems and Notebook LM. And, a lot of people will know about these tools, and they have developed at a terrific rate. But a lot of it has been around, developing new prompts. So being quite clear on what is the knowledge base that you want to actually ensure our sources to provide the evaluation. So a lot of it is around that knowledge base and the prompts. Prompting is everything. in this. And I would say, and I know Paul's going to come on the stage in a minute, I've really benefited from working with people who said, okay, I'll trust you with my speech, Merv, and let's have a look at the results and discuss them together. So that's one thing. But I also give a shout out to my mate Sam. So
Yes.
I work with a guy who's half my age and incredible. And for 2 years now, he's been my mentor. So, and I don't talk about reverse mentoring. He is my mentor. And so he teaches me a lot of AI stuff. And then, part of the time he goes away and develops some of these tools.
Just before we do go on, and I am keen to understand a bit about prompts. If there are people in the audience that are not that familiar with what Gemini is or what GEMS are or Notebook LM, can you just give like a couple of sentence explanation of those, just so we can put things into context for how we're going to move forward?
Yeah, I guess there are so many platforms out there, but the thing that really sold me on Google was the Notebook LM. So it allows you to build your own language model, but you are in control of the sources. And originally it was very locked down. If you put, 2 or 3 sources in there, that constrained, what you were going to get in terms of whether it was an output, whether it was, a report, or in the early days, one of the impressive things was an audio overview. So 2 voices discussed the output of what you got. So that was probably where it started and remains. But the Gemini was again creating your own equivalent to GPTs that they're called GEMS. Yeah. Again, where you can do certain things, and maybe we can have a look at that in a moment.
Yeah, cool. And sorry, I think I cut you off when you were talking a little bit about the prompting style and stuff. I think one of the things that interests me about what the work you're doing in the Notebook LM arena, because it's all your sources, what advantage does that give you, for example, over just using Gemini or ChatGPT on its own to do a similar task? What benefits?
So if you can imagine, going back to David J.P. Phillips, so whether it's his TED Talks or other things that he's written, his 110 steps of communication, or has a thing called Spice Rack. These are all really useful guides and frameworks that you can use. And of course, you can look at the masters of public speaking, whether you and me have met with Sabi Sengupta, who was the actual world champion of public speaking, and to work with them and pull out some of the good practice is great. So find some really reliable sources that you actually want. And of course, from Toastmasters, I should say that there are absolute abundance of resources, whether associated with a particular pathway or a level within the pathway, some great some good practice in there.
Excellent. And I think tonight's as well as a conversation is always a bit of a show and tell session as well. Is there something you want to share with us now? You made a mention of Paul earlier. I think he was one of your maybe earliest guinea pigs on this journey. So do you want to talk us through how it's evolved?
Yeah, let's pull my screen up. I think Olga will probably do that for us, and I'll jump around a couple of things, but just actually sort of pitch it where we started. The TED Talk that we've got here with David J.P. Phillips, and you and me have looked at some of these horrors of PowerPoint and you look at those, and here's one that was delivered no more than 6 months ago, and in our own organization, the PMI, and there's well over 300 words on it, and the challenge you've got, which applies to a visual aid, a PowerPoint, or listening to a speaker, is this whole cognitive overload. What do I do? Do I listen to the speaker? Do I read this, etc., etc.? So we knew that we could do something about the PowerPoint element, and that was one of the main reasons to go into Gemini and to create these gems. So what you can see here is we've got a number of different gems. One that we use for the analyzing videos, typically YouTube recordings. But down here, I've got one for PowerPoint, and I can simply drag in a PowerPoint or a PDF and then apply the learning to that. So I don't think we've got time to go there now, and it wouldn't necessarily take us to what we want to talk to Paul about. So if we jump from that to here, so what we've got here, I will just go back a couple of paces. So before we bring Paul on, I've been really helped enormously with local speeches by 5 different people who've said, here's the speech, and you can work on that. And different motivations there. Both Lee and B are actually my mentees within Worthing Speakers. You all know Carol Cadogan. I think she's maybe not. I think husband to Pearl Cadogan. I think D91 maybe, and Tim Podesta. Tim, I've known for a long time from the sustainability side of things. So we have their speeches. And what we typically do is we will create a prompt, and we have a prompt here, and it talks a little bit about how we've put together essentially a deck of 13 slides that acts as a resource to the speaker. So if we just jump to the next one, which is Paul, perhaps cue Paul to the stage, and then what we've got here is the YouTube video recording of Paul's speech, which was Hello Paul, only recently on the 11th of February. And before I perhaps show you what that looks like, Paul, perhaps you could give us a bit of context for this particular speech and how you found the experience.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me along. I really do appreciate that screen grab of me in the picture there. It looked absolutely fantastic. The speech came about really the pathway I was on. I needed to do something which explored vocal variety, and I have a strange way of producing my speeches in Toastmaster, in that I'll come up with a title and have no idea what I'm going to write or produce. And I just came up with Hello Paul. And I thought, well, what am I going to write with Hello Paul? I'd already committed myself to the title by submitting it. But then I came up, it reminded me of an event that happened early on in my career. I work offshore, the offshore industry. And I was able to use those 2 simple words, Hello Paul, to demonstrate a huge number of vocal varieties by how those 2 words are uttered by someone. And I created this short speech, presented it, and Merv asked, could he record it and try it on here? And I love technology. I have a strong belief in why press 1 button when you can have 2 buttons. And it was interesting seeing the result of the AI compared to the results of the evaluators within the club. And it's been something really, it's been good. It's picked up things which other people didn't pick up on. And it's something I would, if anyone ever has the opportunity to experience this, I'll definitely say take it. It is good because it's impartial. There's no the argument about emotion, yes, but sometimes not having emotion allows other bits to be recorded and presented, which maybe someone doesn't want to.
Thanks for that. We'll take a little look. Just before we do that, bit of context in terms of YouTube. As Paul says, we take a recording, we pop it up onto YouTube, and then we take the link from that, and that's what we put in there. So the other recordings are there, and here you can see Paul's Hello Paul speech. So if we jump back into here, and there are 13 slides in here. What we've tried to do, we tried to brand them and to make them useful to the speaker. So Hello Paul, the introductory slide, and then an overview and an outlook. Again, for people looking in, perhaps as you might be kind of listening into an evaluation, just a reminder of the context. This is obviously very important to us in terms of the timing of any given speech. And what we can do is we can actually take the point at which the speaker starts speaking and the point at which they finish. So you can see a 6 minute 50. Paul has qualified here, so there's no particular learning points that come out of that. And then what we've done, we've evaluated by 3 different key areas. So Paul was talking about vocal variety, and that was there and in spades. But we've got an evaluation here in terms of interactions, how the speaker interacted with the audience, which is always quite challenging online. We've got the content and the speech structure, and I know I'm flashing through, there's not time to read. So we've got and delivery. So we've got there the interaction, the structure, the delivery, and some really pithy feedback that Paul can work on. Some major achievements, what the speaker has done well, what I really like, and some of those that you can see there, some of those that are really important as the hook up front that is given. So major achievements, action plan, areas for improvement, and this is something that we're working on quite closely now. I don't know as you see this, and we've got we've then divided it into a 3-month plan. Any observations about what you see there, Paul? Or
the horizontal movement and the functional gesturing were 2 things which struck me. When you're online, horizontal movement isn't necessarily easy, be it through space. So my office isn't particularly wide, so I can't horizontally move. But even if I could, the angle of my camera would not allow me to step too far out. Whereas obviously when you're presenting in live, your eyesight has that greater swath that you can look at. Functional gesturing, it picked up something about me using my hand, saying it'd be a good idea. I thought I had, so but it's highly possible that I did use my hands, but I just dipped it below the camera, which is a real common problem when you're online, because you should be looking at the camera, not looking at the screen. Not everyone has the camera and screen on a level basis. So something which I thought I'd done, obviously I hadn't done. So that was really interesting. And pace of speech, which is something I've always had, or I've always thought I've had a problem, but I've been told by other people I don't have such a big problem. And it was just nice being able to see there that actually, there are some bits where I do need to slow down. So on the whole, it's picked up pretty well.
And just a quick question from me, Paul, in terms of what you see there as your evaluation feedback. Did the AI tell you something that was a surprise that wasn't picked up, for example, in I'll call it the human evaluation, and vice versa? Was there something that came out from the club evaluation that maybe the AI didn't connect or whatever?
Yeah, no one in the human evaluation said anything about slowing down. So I think because, again, the live evaluation, you only have a small time.
Of course.
So you're trying to cram a lot of bits potentially into this small time period, where here you're not limited by that. So someone may have considered that actually the segment where I would have benefited by slowing down really was superseded by something else that they saw later on in my speech. So I think that was great. No one said anything about moving. They did pick up the hand gesture and some eye contact. But I think those were the only ones from the top of my head that I can remember where they differed.
Thanks. Sorry, Merv, back to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, this develops all the time. One of the reasons that we've now extended the deck is this idea of a 3-month plan, and perhaps we'll have a look in a moment what that means. But we want to be there to be a companion to growth, if you like, and to understand where people are on a particular pathway or level. So the idea at the moment is a 3-month plan, and so we've got what that might look like overall, and then really pulling out the what we got there. I think I might have jumped one. No, that's month 1 focus. We've got a month 2 focus in there, and a month 3. So the idea here is that we build out a plan, and suffice to say, although this is one product that we've got from Notebook LM, there's nothing to stop you when you create this kind of information within your gem to actually say, well, I'll dig a bit deeper. So, give me, if you were looking at pauses, well, tell me what pauses I've got and how long did they last, and give me a timestamp where they are, and then, look for suggestions as to where you could do new ones. So, terrific, summary, next steps, and then some contact details for more. So that's where we are at the moment with that. And, as Paul's demonstrated, it has a lot of potential.
Definitely. It almost feels, from what you've just shown us there, Merv, it's almost like an assistant mentor as well in your development within a club, as well as having mentors within a club. This one can really help sort of structure some of your development and provide that valuable feedback and insight. I know Paul is, I think, one of 4 or 5 that you mentioned a little earlier. What sort of general feedback did you get from the other people that you collaborated with?
Yeah, so there's one in here from a young lady called B Chong, and she's one of my mentees, and she did a dry run of a keynote that she'll be delivering early in March. So that was about with 4 weeks to go, and I saw the first incarnation that she'd done, kind of learning her script, sat on the settee and sent through to have a look. And then in fairly short time, she gave, again, a shortened version of it at our club and used a PowerPoint presentation. And suddenly I realized, actually, we can have a really good conversation, because some of the way in which she was using the slides was getting in the way of her message.
Okay.
And so we sat down over lunch, discussed the materials, just made sure that what I'm conscious of, if someone is very focused on delivering something within a couple of weeks or whatever, they don't want to have to learn too many new things. So I think it's very important, rather than just bombarding people with advice, you get alongside them. Is this helpful, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really worked. The proof of the pie will be how a presentation goes, but that's somewhere where you feel, okay, I've made a difference. I've got some tools here that we can sit down and use.
Yeah, and I think just in what you mentioned there about B's speech, the old dreaded word PowerPoint came up again, and I'm sure that's part of like a future development in terms of either tying the two together or rating or measuring the effectiveness of the use of the slide, as well as the vocal that goes with it as well. Is this sort of turning into some sort of, if you like, conference tool or conference preparation tool or something of that order? Is there a vision you have further down the road for this?
Yeah, there always is. I mean, and you will know from yourself, giving exceptional presentations and kind of well drilled in all the PowerPoint, that we can not just do the speech, but we can do the speech with the PowerPoint and look at the two together. So we have, essentially, you can make choices when you want to analyze a speech. Is it a Toastmaster with Toastmaster rules, between 5 and 7.5 minutes? Is it a TED talk? What are the TED rules? What's TED good practice? Or is it a webinar or a longer speech? And we've done all the top speeches, and I know you and I are very excited about Steve Jobs's speech, and that sort of thing. But also we can talk a little bit about Sabi, etc. I don't know what point we jump to that. But I think
I was just going to say we can move forward. Is before we let Paul go, Paul, was there any other final comments or anything you wanted to share with the audience here tonight about the process you've been through and what you've learned, and maybe where you think it's going?
I think the potential is fantastic, but I'm a strong believer that it needs to be treated as a tool and not as a replacement.
Yes.
Especially within the Toastmasters environment, because one of the skills we are trying to develop is the skill of providing an evaluation. Excuse me. But I think that there's so much potential in this, and the work that Merv and Sam have done is really amazing. Having worked closely with Merv and seen how he's been developed this and just over the last couple of weeks since I made my speech. So yeah, I'm really interested to. I hate the word, but I'm interested to follow the journey and to see how it goes, and especially when it is used in conjunction, just comparing, human evaluations and the AI evaluations. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Paul. I think it's a really important distinction you make there, that this, I think, is really being pitched as a learning and development augmented tool as opposed to replacement. I think it can give some valuable insight to those speakers and evaluators, from at least what I have seen. I don't think it was ever the intention as replacement, although it might have started out as, can it be as good as, and then there was different insights and things. And Merv doing what Merv does best. It's just that deep dive into the possibilities of what it can do and where it can go. Took him to lots of different directions. Talked about TED Talks, YouTube videos, and all the other avenues as well. So I'm sure the well is not dry yet, Merv, in terms of the potential of opportunities you could take.
And I think what I would say is, before I let Paul go, we ran a sustainability summit, an online conference on 5th of December, which was International Volunteering Day, UN's International Volunteering Day. And the amount of work that Paul got through just to help us put that conference together was amazing. I don't think we'd have organised it without him, if I'm honest. So, become a very good friend in terms of helping out on that, which has been great.
I'm blushing.
You've every right to blush. Yeah, it was great. It was brilliant.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, you're very welcome. Please do stay on the call and jump in with any questions or whatever. I've just taken a look to the comments. I haven't seen anything come in right now, Merv. But maybe before we do move on to the next segment, I know you've shared this with a lot of people, both in and outside of Toastmasters. What sort of general questions do you get asked about the work that you're doing and where it's heading?
I guess once people can see the potential, then they do want to put themselves forward. I guess there's very little pushback once people are bought in. I think what you do get asked, I think, is if people are working on a particular thing as part of their pathway, then they're asking questions on that. They want to provide insights with that. So one good example was looking at the use of filler words and replacing them with pauses. And one of my mentees was aware that it was happening, but not to what sort of degree, and be able to go through, or automatically go through and find 10 points at which there was a filler word and look at some alternatives in there, gave them a very useful insight into how they could develop their speaking. So I think unless it's played back to people, we're just kind of blind to a lot of these things. So
they call that the Johari window in coaching.
Yes.
The blind spot. It's a bit like in your car, isn't it, with the rear view mirror and stuff. There's the stuff you still can't see. And that's quite interesting, because that just then opens both the door and shines the light onto areas that people just don't realise. So I can see a massive, great benefit there. And I guess you've given Sabia mention already, but you've actually run the rule with the World Champion of Public Speaking for 2025. How did all that come about?
Well, as you know, I think we both got involved with. Some people will remember this District 71 winter webinar that occurred at the end of November, and we were we were invited, or you were invited, I tagged along to MC the event. And I can remember there was a huge number of award winners, etc. And you got through it really quite quickly. But the highlight of that event was that Sabi, having recently become world champion, was engaged as a speaker. So not only did he come along and do a keynote, if you like, in that session and talk about his journey, but he also did a Q&A, and we were able to manage that Q&A and again pull out some really useful learning points that came out of that. So serendipity, you get to meet people through Toastmasters. We got to meet Sabi, and that was great. And I guess for those that haven't yet seen it, I think there's about 200,000 views now. Probably if you saw the YouTube video, it would immediately, I know we've got lots of noise here, but you'd remember the speech, because he wore a bright red suit, and that was part of, it was talking about. Great speech. If you haven't listened to it yet, please do. Sabi Sengupta, just nod.
You say it was great, Merv. I know that you did an analysis of Sabi's World Championship winning speech, as well as something that preceded that as well. Hopefully, Development Journey will take us on.
Yeah.
But when you actually analyse that World Championship winning speech, what sort of insights came up? What sort of improvements maybe could Sabi have done? And what was his reaction to seeing and hearing the feedback?
Well, I was amazed, because, thought, it's going to be downright perfect. And we asked Sabi, how it had gone, and what marks he would give. And we were kind of 10 out of 10, or do I, shave half a point off? He said 7. There was a lot that he could have done. And one of the things that really came through so strongly was that, the growth from the first time he given the speech was huge. He talked about having 2 mentors there that worked with him. But he also said he almost ran out of time. I think it's about 7 minutes 15, but he practiced at 6 minutes. But because that interaction was so good with the audience, and he just played to it rather more, his time went on. And I know, I tend to run out of time, or right near that on the cusp. But that was a really interesting insight. Less is more. We know that, and even the world champion was aware of that. And he made changes on the day. He made a joke about the I can't remember, they call it Toastmasters Council, but the meeting that they'd obviously had that morning, and poked a little bit of fun about that meeting versus his business meetings. I think what I learned, it's all about telling a story, and a personal story, and I think in some ways the humility comes by sending yourself up, telling a joke about yourself, and I think that came through. But
self-deprecation is the best, isn't it?
What I loved about that was Sabi trusted us enough to, if I just go in here, so these are our recordings. Clearly the one that's on the website is there, it's public, it's had 200,000 views. There's another one that's only had about 2 views, or very, very few, because it's what Sabi shared with me. Now I'm just trying to, is it way back? It's in here somewhere. Maybe it's back longer than I thought. But here we go. A Dream Too Far by Sabi, which was again a speech that was given at club level. So this was the speech early days. I think you may recall, Nigel, was it 4 to 6 weeks before? It wasn't a huge amount of time, was it?
Yeah, it was at least a month before the finals, definitely. Yeah.
So what we did on that one was this, which essentially we took those 2 speeches and we produced a scorecard, and then behind the scorecard is quite a lot. But this is an infographic that we were able to pull out, and Sabi loved it. So, and he, I was delighted when he made a post about it. But again, I think what is useful about, the infographic, it's very easy to watch a video and say, oh, that was great. loved it. Well, what was it about it? And it's very difficult then to get into the sort of meat and potatoes of why it was good. But here is something that Sabi, felt, okay, this is really useful, and how he could see different parts of his speech work. And you can see this is a comparison. So this is the early speech that he gave, A Dream Too Far. And then this is the transform speech, the Just Nod red suit speech. And you can see here in terms of key upgrades for a champion speech. So stronger opening from joke to confession. What have we got here? From hidden moral to upfront purpose, from no symbol to iconic prop, the red suit. And you may recall from the speech, the theatrics of kissing the stage. I love you so much, and those kind of things came through. And then and this is out of the kind of J.P. Phillips playbook, the limbic uppercut. How you kind of how you bookend. You start with the hook, and you finish with the limbic uppercut to knock. To knock. I don't know. To knock out the audience, whatever it actually means, but you get a sense of you finish strong.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was great. And then I think behind this sits a number of, again, we go a bit deeper with the information that's there. So this is the first speech, but we've also got the second speech that's outlined in this particular deck. So really good, really feel privileged to be able to work with him, and that he appreciated our work, Nigel.
Yeah, and he came up with some good recommendations and a good reference point for us, at least. And to have that sort of advocacy from a Toastmasters world champion, I think, was a bit of a shining light for the great work that you're doing. With all this in mind, Merv, where do you think it's going to go next? Well, you talked about maybe having a deeper vision a little earlier. How would you like to see this play out? I know we've had discussions maybe about trying to incorporate speaker personal feedback into the evaluations, and also maybe tailor the feedback based on pathway and speech level as well. Are there any other dimensions you're particularly looking at in terms of next steps forward, or are you looking for ideas from the wider Toastmaster community indeed?
Well, we've done, perhaps we take this down for a moment, Olga, and we can but we've talked about a few different things. So the idea of growth that Sabi had in terms of taking one speech and refining it, and perhaps looking at the delta there, or comparing speeches. So it may be from the same speaker, but two different speeches over a particular period. I think there's something valuable in that. In learning from other speeches. So you and me have been looking at 10 top TED Talks, easy to say, and then pull out where is the learning? So as a group, perhaps doing some sort of educational workshop, you can then start to critique some great speeches and pull out from there. So I think there's definitely something there. We've talked about the Toastmasters TEDs and various webinars. I mean, I know you and I have had some discussions about helping out speakers who maybe key influencers who've got to do an important speech, something like a town hall that invariably has a PowerPoint, and it's about how do we ensure that not only is that speech good by all the criteria we've got, but it is matched by the PowerPoint, because we know that things can kind of succeed or fail based on the quality of the PowerPoint supporting the message. So I think there's an awful lot that's holistic in there.
I think it's also important to point out as well, anyway, isn't it, Merv, that the analysis you've done for all these evaluations, in the background in your language model in Notebook LM are all of the Toastmasters specific criteria that judges would look for example, a contest scenario, as well as guides and notes and references about what constitutes a good Toastmasters evaluation. So in a sense, there is this limited boundary of knowledge, which is very Toastmasters specific, which is enabling the work that you're doing to be very tailored and to be very accurate to that sort of Toastmasters community.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know all the pathways, but it seems to me a lot of people start down the presentation mastery route. I know I did. And then, within there, it does talk about visual aids, and it does, talk about PowerPoint, but perhaps doesn't go very far into that. And clearly, we've been looking at some of the science of it, and you and I have talked often about this whole cognitive overload thing that is really genuine. What are we expecting the audience to take away, and do we have any chance of that if we hit them with huge amount of text and we just confuse them? So
well, I guess if we're not careful, get down a completely different avenue here, which is all about audience engagement and how to keep the audience alive and energized and interested and entertained in a session. That may be a topic for a different day, of course, but just maybe back on the AI theme. I mean, you've spoken, I think from you, I can't remember the name you talked about, so that tool maybe 10 years ago, the one you did in Copenhagen. Yes. So with that sort of rate of acceleration of technology, the way that we're able now to process huge amounts of data with complex processing power, these models that are coming along, which we spoke in the sort of virtual green room before we came on this evening, that there's like a whole host of these, these AI bots like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and all the rest of it. What do you think is going to happen in the world of AI to consumers like us, maybe in the next year or so, which could take what we're trying to develop here into another dimension?
Well, I guess sometimes I talk about being like a kid in a sweet shop as to what I go for next, but and then also this kind of what should I concentrate on? So I know that I've chosen several tools and go pretty deep with them. They may not be the best, but they're ones that I'm pushing quite hard and seeing what the art of the possible is. So I'm comfortable I've got the right tools. I'm also, I've mentioned Sam once already. These sort of ideas don't brew on their own. They need other people to help with that. And I know you and I have had many conversations about how we can use them. What are the use cases, or what are the problems we're looking to solve? And back to the send steps, and now it's Mentimeter since about 2017. I feel that we now know what engages audiences, whether we've tried it, and I think we're ready to share a lot of that knowledge, whether it's coaching others, etc. So I think it feels as though it's going in the right direction, but I never quite know where it's going to go next. And a recognition that it moves very quickly. If we'd had this session even 9 months ago, I wouldn't have had any of this to share. I'd be telling you about essentially what I'd done in Otter, recording the audio, but now it's watching a 7-minute speech and picking up every last nuance of that speech, and goodness knows what it'll be in a year's time.
Well, I was just about to say that maybe even less, maybe 9 months time from now, how would it have developed and moved forward? And I think, as you mentioned, you've probably then you talked about joining, I think, Worthing Speakers certainly within the last year, and this with Otter AI started around August time. So since August through to now, what's been either the biggest surprise or the biggest learning around all this technology which helps us here in Toastmasters, or has made you stand back and reflect and say, wow, that was good, or that's amazing, or I've learned a lot here? Is there any standout moments, or maybe 2 or 3 things that have really caught your eye and your attention?
I think as with all of these things, it's when the rubber hits the road that it really matters. I think one of the things that I found is people's capacity to change and adopt this stuff is perhaps quite limited. It's very easy to go so deep that you believe everyone else is in the same place. And one example of that, and I know we've shared that, is when we've spoken to speakers about the use of Mentimeter and how it can really spice up a presentation and get the audience involved. And heading towards a conference where everyone is quite focused on getting things organized and ready with their speech, it's virtually impossible to teach someone a brand new way of doing things. So I think in many ways, and I've realized that there's no point in trying, but actually what works is to take someone who's willing to try a few things and has a bit of time to do that. So just because they've used PowerPoint for, I don't know, 25 years, actually they may be willing to try something else, but not when they're near some high stakes presentation or whatever. So I think it's finding those opportunities and finding some that this isn't really an opportunity, so we won't try here at the moment. You push a few different doors, and some of them open and some close very firmly, but that's fine.
Right, that's good to know there's a future in all of this. And I think even in 9 months' time you'll still be that proverbial kid in the sweet shop, not really knowing which jar to go for. But coming up, I think in early May, there's an opportunity perhaps for people to see this all live, isn't there? There's something happening with the District 91 conference. Do you want to give us a few insights into that?
Yeah, I mean, we've managed to get a slot. I think it's only a half-hour slot, so we're going to have to be quite effective in our use of time, where we're going to talk about how this can be applied in terms of evaluation. So we have a workshop. We have a stooge who will give us a speech, and we're going to play that speech, but make sure that the audience are there and they can do their own assessment of what's before them. We'll have an evaluator on the day, or maybe we'll see it just once before, but a genuine evaluation from someone who knows how to evaluate, and then we'll show what the AI can actually do. That's not to in any way diminish the evaluation, but to say, okay, there's a whole lot more that we can either do at the time or afterwards. So we've got a session and we're working towards that. We're going to make that really interactive, really interesting, and I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. And it's not any old stooge we've got, Merv. It is I think the 2022-2023 district champion international speech for District 91, Anthony Garvey, that may be known to some of the folks on the call here, has kindly agreed to allow us to use his district winning speech to do the analysis. I think what we're also going to do, Merv, is ask him for, again, some of his criteria to see if we can adjust the model and maybe get him to give us some feedback on that. But if anyone is interested, that's the Route to Rise District 91 conference. So I think that's the 2nd and 3rd of May. And as with the District 71 conference, which is I think a week later in Tralee in Ireland, I think there's tickets available for both if anyone's thinking of going along. But I think that will be a great opportunity to showcase everything you've been doing in a live way. Because I know originally we wanted to do it with a live speaker. It was just the fact that we only got half an hour that we probably couldn't guarantee the tool set working and giving us the results in that time span. But I guess the other real benefit from that session is the feedback that we'll probably get from that. I know from what you said from all your speakers you worked with thus far, and including Sabi, of course, as well as Paul, that it's been very favourable, very supportive. It's something that can help people moving forward. But I guess I've got a bit of a general question for you, Merv, because I know you're a bit of I'll say you're a generalist and a specialist all in one. You're very, very hobbyist, very passionate about lots of things, technology-wise and everything. Is there any other areas of AI you're looking at the moment, which maybe not necessarily Toastmasters related or evaluation related or anything like that? Is there any sort of deep research you're doing on any other things at all?
Well, I did intimate Paul had been very helpful with one of our PMI conferences, the Sustainability Summit.
Yeah.
And one of those things I think that we so often we waste the opportunity is we have a conference, we go along, we say, oh, that was great, this speaker was great, you know, and we fill in our surveys or our happy sheets or whatever. So just imagine, as we did with our summit, we ask people some really important questions so far as the actual presentation is concerned, and we get the information back, and we know we've got a little ruse that we use within PMI UK. People want what's called PDUs, or kind of those educational points, so they complete our survey and they get those. So we can take the survey of a particular session, we can take the content of the session, the presentation, the audio, the video, etc., mash that all together, and then, you know, again, there's some additional learning. So there's downstream learning from people who attended that session, and also then for the conference organizers, what could they do better for the speakers themselves. So it's just combining the information that we've got with the audience feedback. So that takes it on a level, and we've seen some great results with that conference, and we want to develop these conference companion services, if you like. So if you organize a conference, what's the event ROI? So what's the return on the considerable investment that goes into organizing this? You know, that anyone who organizes events is interested in ROI.
And District 91 and District 71 speaks to mind. Potentially, I think there's a job we could do for, maybe not this year, because you mentioned earlier about being close to these events, but with a bit of lead time and a bit of planning, and certainly the learning, because I know that we're engaged with Sweden and Germany at least this year. There could be more. We'll have some great case studies and references, and as you say, those benefits from the event itself can be analysed with insights and research. So that's all very good. I'm just conscious of time here at the moment, Merv. We've gone through this pretty swiftly, I have to say, this evening. We're just about to wrap up in the next minute or so. But what I'd like to do, first of all, I just want to thank our series producer sitting in the background, Olga Byrne, for a fantastic episode 20. 20 of these fantastic events. So Olga, thank you so much for that. I want to thank Paul as well for jumping on and helping to validate and take part in some of Merv's great research. Certainly to yourself, Merv, but I do actually want to leave the last words to yourself in terms of, you know, if there's anyone interested in the work that you're doing, or, you know, wants to know a little bit more or wants to understand it in any great detail. Two things really, maybe how people can get hold of you, and if there's something you want to leave people with before they log off here tonight, what would that key message, would you think, be from yourself?
Well, certainly LinkedIn is probably the best way to get hold of me. I'm pretty much all over LinkedIn, so I will respond to that. And if you do want to share a speech and you'd like us to run that through the system, I'm sure we can do that for you. In terms of, I guess it's a mindset thing, and I did quote this at the end of one of my recent speeches, which is it's Henry Ford who said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." Yeah,
it is that mindset thing. Is it fixed or growth? A great way to end there. I want to thank you so much, Merv, for your time, your application, your research, your energy, and your effortless enthusiasm to this subject. I hope it's resonated with a few people listening in, or people that are going to get it on catch up. But I just want to say, I've been Nigel Smith. I've been your host here this evening, together with Merv and Paul, and we're just, I think the red light's just about to come on, Merv. So I think we'll just give a wave and say cheerio, and we'll catch everyone perhaps on the next episode or whenever you might see us again. But look out for us at the District 91 conference in early May. But from me at least, good night and thank you.
And thank you so much.